Hello, everybody. My name is Joel Filderman, and welcome to the Dog Trainers Connection. I'm not a dog trainer, but these other people you see here are. We get together, we have a discussion, we come up with some thoughts, that's the word, some ideas, and sometimes some answers, but we always have an interesting discussion. And what I'd like to do today is continue our discussion from our last session, where we discussed the future of dog training. And this time, what I would like to discuss is the future of dog trainers. And I'm going to start it in the same way that I started the last one, which is discussing the San Francisco SPCA. Which I honestly didn't expect to do. I ran across an article where they said that, now for those who don't remember or weren't here, what I was discussing last time is the fact that the San Francisco SPCA, wow, I cannot talk today, was relatively well known for their dog training education program and for their dog trainers. Well, they've gotten rid of those. And the reason that they got rid of them was that they said that they were contract workers, they couldn't afford them, it was costing too much money, et cetera, et cetera. Now, what I read this week is that they are experimenting with a dog trainer, which is a computer. The way it works is that this computer will visually scan the dog as you either a vocal command or just a command is done to the dog. It will analyze how the dog is doing, and for right now it can only do sit, stay, come, and down, and it will analyze how the dog is doing it and the stress level of the dog. So the question to start with is that it, Jeff, or the robots taking over?
Well, I mean, oh, sorry, Jeff.
No, okay, go ahead, Helen.
The robot threw me. I don't.
Go ahead, Helen.
You don't want to know what I was thinking when he said robot.
Go ahead, Helen.
Okay, well, I mean, so it analyzes the dog and the stress level and how the dog is doing, but who's teaching the dog? The robot's not teaching.
Supposedly, there's going to be they're going to program it. You scan in the dog that you're working with not with the dog, obviously, with something on your phone. And it will come up with a program for this dog. Now,
okay,
there are actually apps that do this as well.
Yeah, it comes
a phone app that does this.
It comes up with a program. Who's implementing the program? The
yes.
dog is not going to respond to cues from a computer. There's a lot of dogs that won't even acknowledge images on a screen,
mm-hmm.
on TV. There are some dogs that watch TV, but a lot of them, TV, they no meaning for them.
I'm not sure. I believe it's just a vocal command that comes off of the computer right now.
Not happening.
And now, is this like a computer like sitting on a desktop? Or
no, it's in either a pen or it's being tested out in the San Francisco SPCA. So it's either in their working area is where I'm assuming is what they're using it in.
What does it look like, though?
It's a box.
Okay.
Okay. So
and it dispenses treats. I'm sorry, I did forget that piece.
Okay, so here's my thought. Computerization and robots are tools and assistants. Back a million years ago, I don't even want to say how long ago, when I worked in finance and accounting and finance, and I was in an industry where we had to price out things, and we did it manually. At the close of the market, we'd go on I don't know, I don't even remember, I think it was a Bloomberg, who knows, and punch up ticker singles and write down the prices and then calculate the market values of everything and determine what the value of the portfolio was. All manual.
Mm-hmm.
When computers came out, we started putting things on spreadsheet, we started having more and more computers. It was like, oh, this is going to make everyone more efficient and everything's going to go faster. No, still work long hours. It made things easier to do, and it provided us with the ability to do more than we could manually. in a faster period of time, but all we did was create more work for ourselves. So I just think that, whatever computers or robots they come up with can be tools or assistants, but it's not replacing people. Neither are videos and neither are books. There's a million dog training books out there. There's a million dog training videos. Some of them very good, some of them excellent. The problem is when the person at home tries it and it doesn't work the way it's shown on the video, or it doesn't work the way it's described in the textbook. Then what do? They call me. And that's, maybe my future in dog training might be more problem solving and behavior problems and issues than basic training. I don't know, but hopefully I'm retired by then. But I don't think that computers and robots are going to replace us anytime soon. Again, they could be tools. They might make our work more efficient. We might be able to do things remotely. We might be able to do more with them, but I don't think they're going to replace.
Okay. But AI is getting more advanced. Computers are learning more. They're teaching computers how to do things, and computers are learning themselves now how to do it. So does that mean, Steve, that they can learn how to train dogs?
When a computer, or when this box they have can throw a ball, let me know.
Okay. We can throw treats.
Yeah, but the engagement has more to do than just eating. I mean, there's got to be a relationship, and a dog. Why would a dog have a relationship with a box, even if it's flipping food out? They could go in a garbage can and get food. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't see it. They're not squirrels. I mean, from my own experience, I try not to handle so many dogs when I go out on a job now. I try to talk my client into what they need to do. I might show them briefly how it goes, but then I'm getting my hands off as fast as I can because I know I'm leaving and they have to have some kind of wisdom. And I don't see how the computer's going to lay that out for them. And, treating dogs is a very personal thing, I think. I can't put it in that category of, we can digitize it somehow and make it right. I think relationships count when it comes to training. I mean, why would a dog listen to somebody it has no real relationship with? It may know sit, but I mean, I go to somebody's house, I say sit to a dog that knows it. The dog looks at them like, who the hell are you? Why would I do that? I don't really know you, guy. Know, but I got treats, and the dog's like, well, maybe. Right, maybe, because I'm not starving, and I'll sit for these guys over here because I know them and I love them, and like that. But there's more to it than just the exercises, and I think it's real sad what they did to the SPCA. I mean, I know that I had a problem myself when I worked at SPCA when I went to clean. Did I ever mention? I went to help them clean a cat house. I go in the morning and they got so many animals and they got dishes, so many dishes to wash and so many animals to feed and cages to clean. And I didn't feel like the staff, they were doing a good job. I thought they were doing a great job, but they needed more help. So I went and I helped. Well, then a couple of the girls who worked in the cat house went to the board and the kennel master and complained. They were crying. He must think we suck at this. He came in here, put gloves on. He was washing dishes, like it was illegal. And so I tried to explain to him, like, no,
I'm trying to help.
I think you guys are heroes for what you do and the hard work you put in, but you needed more help, right? So since we don't have help, I had nothing to do at the time. I wanted to help. Well, a few days later, the union rep comes in, sits me down and tells me that I can't touch that stuff because it's not my job. And I was like, you're telling me I can't wash dishes? That's not your job, right? Don't make us come back here. Guy came with a leather jacket, with the red sleeves, and it says union, whatever, the number on there, Right. It's like, I felt like the police came. I mean, because I tried to help. So I see how some of these things are so, I don't know the word.
Specialized?
It's
political.
It's politics. These rules, I don't know where these rules come from. I mean, the guy said, I said to him, there's not enough help. He goes, then hire more help, union help, and pay them. And I'm like, we have ads out and we plan to do that. I'm not trying to take somebody's job away. This is not like Macy's, there are animals here. We could make it better for them if we're more efficient. He's going, hire someone. I mean, I got where he was coming from, right? It was all about, somebody's losing their.
Sure.
It's a nice dog you got there, Jeff.
Yeah.
Somebody could have a job.
Oh.
Look at that.
My vicious pit bull. Oh, my
Yeah,
vicious
talk about
fish breath
breeds.
pit bull.
Look at him. Cute guy. Yeah. You think he would lick a box like that? I don't think so. Treats or no treats, he's not licking the box.
Oh,
Okay,
man.
well, that certainly is a point. Go ahead, Bonnie.
When Helen just said political, that word, I think that the future of dog trainers is that we're all kind of doing our profession in by not supporting one another and by tearing each other down for tools, for positive, for aversive, for shock collars, and I read something, and I'm not going to do what other people do, is badmouth a well-known trainer, but there's a difference between proving that an animal is being hurt and just that somebody in their training is doing something, using a more forceful correction, or however you want to call it, than abusing a dog or really hurting them. And I was thinking, well, okay, a trainer comes in and tells the person do something that you might think is excessive, but is the dog loved in the home? Does the dog have a good relationship with the owner? Is the dog being exercised, fed well, hugged, sleeping with the owners, not being thrown out and left outside? There's so much to owning a dog and loving a dog and giving to the dog that to like single out because somebody used a harsh method on that particular dog. And probably what happened, if it was the wrong method, if it was too harsh, if it was too aversive or too much, treats, then it didn't work. You know what I'm saying? Saying then the training didn't work. So you have to, as a good trainer, you figure out, okay, that didn't work. Well, I'm correcting my dog. I'm popping the prong. Sure. It still is pulling. And as I found with a Norwegian elk hound, you need to find some other way to fix the thing that's the behavior that's bothering you or that's a problem for you.
Well, isn't also...
And we just need to, which is what Dog Trainers Connection has always been about, uniting trainers of all beliefs. Because if you're not united, and speaking of not being united with Martin Luther King Day, you're not going to get anywhere. It's just going to all go down the drain. And
but my
look
question,
what happened to him.
My question is that, is all this divisiveness hurting dog trainers? Because where the dog training is now came out of people going, well, this doesn't work, maybe we should try this. Maybe that doesn't work, maybe we should try this. Now it's, this doesn't work, you're wrong. That doesn't work, you're wrong. Nobody seems to be coming up and saying, well, wait a minute, what if we tried this? Am I right about that, trainers? Am I wrong about that?
But it's not only what if we tried this. It's like, okay, that's how you do it. You seem to be successful with that. Open your mind to other things and to learn about other things, but to not to condemn that trainer for doing something different than you do. I don't know, Joel. I may have not. Really followed what you asked.
Correct me if I'm wrong, trainers, but did not the clicker training come out of basically somebody or a few people saying, I really don't like the way that this is going. Let's try something different. And I don't see a lot of that these days. I don't see a lot of, in dog training in particular, but I guess in general, but we're talking about dog training, I don't see a lot of people saying, look, let's try something different. It's you're wrong, and I'm staying with mine, and that's the end. Am I wrong? I don't know.
All right.
Well, how is that hurting? I don't see it hurting the future of dog training. We see that, and if you go on the forums and there's all this bickering and there's,
because Helen, isn't there going to come a point where people are going to go, I don't like either of them.
Well, it does hurt the future of dog training, because how can we advance as a profession if there's all this infighting? It's not conducive to.
So where is the infighting coming from? Be honest.
Both
Be
sides,
honest.
Jeff.
What's that?
Both sides of the spectrum.
And what is the root of the divisiveness? There's only one root cause of the device.
Perceived ethics.
Tools.
Yeah.
Well, that's perceived ethics.
I don't know.
Tools as unethical, or
Okay, well, however you want to classify tools, but handling tools are at the core of almost every argument I've ever seen from whatever spectrum of the dog training someone falls within. I mean, that's what I see, is that they're arguing over tools. I shouldn't say they. I've got sucked in a bunch of times. I'm sure I'll get sucked in again.
Me too. We all have.
But I can tell you this, and I don't want to name certain demographics, but if their way doesn't work and they're not open to a way that could help save that dog's life, I can't even say it because there's no non-curse word that I could think of that would really get my point across.
No, understood. Understood.
I can't wrap, and maybe this is more of the rescue part of me, right? Because that's so ingrained in me. I have a hard time understanding that if a piece of cheese can't fix a dog, but a star mark collar can, and that can save a dog's life. Or in the case of the loving, spoiled dog owner that Bonnie was referring to, that maybe uses a tool, that dog's life is enriched because cheese and crackers and hot dogs just don't enrich that dog's life out in social situations, but a tool does. And if a tool makes social outings more manageable, the owner is more likely to go out, right? And that's just one superficial example, and I'm not going to get into the debate. But tools are at the root cause of a lot of the issues that the divisiveness that goes on. At least that's what I'm looking at, is there's a lot of divisiveness there. And if we're talking about the future of dog trainers, let's tie that into this box that Joel is talking about, right? Mm-hmm. Well, who is entering the data into the box?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So think about who, and I'm just going to say it, I don't give a shit, who is indoctrinating the new and upcoming dog trainers, right? The people who are indoctrinating them are the same people who are severely criticizing people who may be a little more open-minded as trainers than just using food as a resource, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, all right, so I use a Star Mark collar. It's no secret, right? It's in my contract when I have people, when rescue send a dog here, I may use a Star Mark collar. I may use a gentle leader. I may use a halty. I may use a no pull harness, right? I have this in my contract. I may use these things for walking purposes, right?
Right.
It's no secret. So I just went off on a tangent. I apologize. Do we have time?
You're fine.
Oh, okay. So, we have to have an open mind, right? So if we're saying that it's either this way or no way, I don't know. I have a hard time. I don't know. I have a hard time with that. I'd rather have, I'd rather have a box full of tools that I may never need than not having that box of tools that I may need. you know, and here's the shitty part is that there are still trainers out there. And this is how I was introduced to training back in the early 90s, who are just over the top, still correcting the crap out of dogs.
Right.
Really unfair, inhumane manner. Right. That's how that was my first exposure to dog training, you know, a long time ago. And, you know, so I think that doesn't help anyone's argument that tools have their place in dog training.
That's true.
But at the same
That's
time,
true because
I'm telling you, I see these force-free trainers, and you know what? People call, as soon as you say balanced trainer, they automatically think, oh, a balanced trainer is an e-collar trainer. I don't know why, but that's what they automatically associate with it. When I hear balanced trainer, I think operant conditioning. That's just me, right? When I don't know, I've never actually seen a force-free trainer in action working with serious issues, right? I've only been able to watch videos and some of the more prominent, outspoken social media force-free trainers. The dogs are out of control, dragging them down the street on harnesses. There's no feedback. There's no relationship. It's all food. Right. And trust me, I mean, I use food every day. If anyone watches my videos, I sound like a bumbling idiot when a dog provides good feedback to me. I get so excited for them. But there's, like, you know, that tied into what Steve said in the box, right? Where's the relationship?
Right.
A dog that is 6 or 8 feet away from me on a walk, they're on a separate walk from me. They're not on my walk. I'm not on their walk. We're on 2 different walks. You know,
you had said last time, Jeff, that you were afraid. You one of the last things you said in the session was that you're afraid of the future of dog training.
Yeah, you know why? Because of technology.
Okay.
And I do virtual consults. In fact, I have one tonight. And, you know, I have a disclaimer. I say, you know, look, I can, this is, you know, we'll do what we can via video. I said, but you really need a local trainer for your situation. You know, and maybe that's because I'm very hands-on and I'm very, I'm very much into energy and the feel of a situation. You know, the aura of an environment, you know, the feedback from dog owner and dog, like all that stuff is really hard to find out through a video conference, right? But
I understand.
So I think a reliance on technology in that respect is something I'm concerned about.
Okay.
Because, you know, even with my school, and we talked about this with dog training certifications, right? You know, virtual mentoring is great and all, but nothing beats in person. Get your hands on a leash in front of me. Let's work together, right? Like Steve said, he wants his hands off of the dog as soon as possible. Why? So he can get the owner working, so he can critique the owner. And I'm sure, you know, Steve can probably attest to that, you know, there's a lot of environmental factors that may go into what he's telling them to do or don't do. Can't do that with technology, right? Sure. You can't do that with a video or a telephone call. We could help, we could offer advice, we can give them knowledge, but the technical and the hands-on, the mechanical part, right? All that stuff you can't duplicate over a computer. And the other part of it is all these certifications, and regardless of where certification goes, you know, as whether it's going to be a requirement or a law, we talked about that briefly last year. They're all online tests. You know, I mean,
there's no practical application to it.
There's and you know, where's the mentoring is what, 15 hours? Right. I mean, 15 hours. That's like 2 days at a shelter. Yeah. What are you getting?
Getting a box that's dispensing treats.
Yeah, you know, I mean.
So Steve, do you think that the closed-mindedness is going to jeopardize the dog trainers in the future?
I mean, I find myself almost regularly now saying the problem is that punishment has been paired with abuse. And that's not true.
Okay.
And I think that the people that pair...
I mean, in people's minds.
Yeah. If you're going to pair punishment with abuse, you probably never had kids. You know, that's what I'm going to say. Punishment in the whole operant deal, it's all about consequences. You know what I mean?
Right.
You don't have to be, I have zero problems with remote collars, zero. I'm not going to put them on like full blast and mortify a dog. I try to use the vibrate feature as much as I can, but I want to show this animal that's jumping on the counter over there that there is a consequence for it. That's all. I'm not saying I did it. I'm not even claiming to be responsible for what you feel over there.
Right.
Maybe it's where you are that creates that. Now, the other thing is that if I have to go from using my chicken to some sort of handling, that's the way it's going to go. I'm going to use the Lima model I'm going to go with the least intrusive thing I can to start. I don't train my clients' dogs to heel in the street. I teach them to heel off leash in the house. If they can't walk in the house, no distractions, familiar environment, and understand the whole deal of hang to the left leg. If I step to the right, you come to the right, hang at the left leg. If I back up, you back up. If the dog isn't good at that, why am I going in the street where there's smells and all the stuff that dogs go out for anyway? I mean, why would I not let them do that? But if I say heel, I know I trained it and I didn't use the leash. I didn't even have a leash on. I don't need the leash. I need the dog to understand what I'm looking for. Now, if I train the dog and it knows perfectly well what I'm looking for, and the dog basically goes like this, then maybe I need the pinch. Or maybe I can still use a buckle collar and just make a leash correction. Maybe I don't even need a heavy-handed type collar. Maybe a buckle collar will work. At least I'm going to try it. If it doesn't work, I can move on up. I could use a heavier correction on the buckle collar, or I can actually move to another tool, but I'm going to try and be careful with the tool. So if I have a nail sticking out of the wall, I'm not going to take a screwdriver and rest it. I'm not even going to take a hammer and rest it to the top of the nail and try and push like this, because the nail's never going to go on the wall.
Right.
If I need a hammer to drive a nail in, I got a bang. That's what the hammer's for, right? So if you're using your tools, I need to put a screw in the wall, I'm going to use a screwdriver. I'm not going to use a hammer and try and bang a screw into the wall. So I have no problem with the tools at all. I mean, from the least to the most, it's not the tool, it's the user. It's the user. If you're going to talk to people who care about animals, then I'd like to think that they're going to go with the least amount of like avoidance type training to start. They're going to teach. They're going to take whatever time it takes to teach the animal what's expected and what's rewardable and all of that. If the dog later down the road, you can honestly say to yourself, I put all this time and effort into teaching this dog. And I know the dog knows because the dog has been responsive to all of these things. And I then take my responsive dog and I actually start adding distractions because I know that's going to change the deal anyway, and try and work that out. But it's all it's pieces. I'm not going from 0 to 1,000 and banging at a dog. Now, there are people, I've seen this myself, who they're not using punishment. They're abusing the animal because they sort of, I don't know what's in their mind. They feel like if they go to the big bang first. I mean, I've had somebody once say to me, look, you're trying to use aversion, then show them what they need to be concerned with. Right? I'm like, you know what? I'm not sure. How would I know how much it takes? If I go right to the big stuff, maybe I'm going to blow the dog's mind and make myself useless as the trainer for this dog or for these people. If I go in there with like boxing gloves on and I start hammering on the dog, it's like, first I'll probably alienate the client, which if somebody came in and did that to my dog, I'd be kicking their ass, basically. You know what I mean? They're not going to put their hands on my dog and get away with it. That's not going to happen. So, because I find you didn't even try to communicate with my animal. If you're a professional, you try and communicate. Right? Or ask me if you think you need to do something that I might have a problem with before you go off and do it. Because if you do, they're going to be scraping you up off the street in front of my house. I mean, I'm not going to put up with that. So, because I have a relationship with my animals, doesn't mean I don't want to train them. It means I want to train them thoughtfully. And if force needs to be made, then it's going to be the minimal amount of force necessary to get the job done, not the maximum amount to try and shortcut the process or something like that. I got a problem.
But Steve, do you think
hold on. I'm sorry. When did you start using the word force? I'm going to guess, Steve, that you didn't always use the word force.
Force?
Force. When did you start using the word force?
I have no idea.
I'm going to guess pretty recently in your long, astounding career over the course of the remarkable work you've done throughout your life. If you were handling a dog or using a tool, would you say, now I'm going to use force? Or did you make a decision based on the situation as it arose?
That's the way it's got to be. It's everything changes, right? The whole situation is like in flux constantly.
Yeah. The F word is a big catalyst in a lot of divisiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
if you force an animal to do anything, they didn't do it. Is that true?
Yeah.
You did it.
Correct.
Right. So why would, that's why that kind of stuff is like at the end of the process. I mean, listen, I'll never forget this so long as I live. I had a bloodhound in a class with a woman that was like 7.5 months pregnant. And I was working the down. It was a class situation. I was working the down. I mean, I brought this bloodhound down with food and food for weeks. And this dog was like, you try and like help her to get down. It wasn't happening.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't. And so I went to the old school Blanche Saunders, hold the leash, put my foot on it, down on the leash, hand on the back, boom. And I mean, I wrestled this dog to the floor. And she looked up at me like, it's like that? And I was like, it's like that, And after that, the owner put the hand up, the dog lied down, and the dog, I didn't know it was like that. That if I didn't do that, they were going to leave my class without that dog laying down. This lady's pregnant. She needs this dog to lie down when she says down. And so I remember it to this day. You know how many years ago this was?
Yeah.
Because I didn't feel comfortable doing that,
mm-hmm.
but I felt the need to do that to get it done. I didn't hurt the dog, but I forced the dog into the down because I had already been for weeks working on this thing. Everybody else in this class environment's doing their thing. And this bloodhound's looking at me like, And I'm like, oh, yes. And I went the Blanche Saunders route. And, at one time, show her, like physically put her. But I don't believe in forcing them because when I forced her, I couldn't say she did it. I did it. But I did get a positive outcome from that, without having to force her again at all. Now that's interesting to me. I can't forget that because it did work out. But to this day, it's still in my mind because I was not comfortable doing that. But I'm not forgetting the outcome either. She learned something from that.
And Steve, I think we've all had experiences like that where those of us who learned that Blanche Saunders type of training and you had to do something, you didn't feel great about doing it, but the outcome was what you needed to help the client and then in turn help the dog. I understand that feeling. I did it with a greyhound that had to go down a flight of stairs. Or this woman wasn't going to be able to keep it. And I just said, come on, we're going. And my heart broke for this dog. We had to go down a flight of stairs in a brownstone. And I'll never forget that. And I just said, come on, you're going. That's good. You can do this. And just took the dog down.
And it was helpful. It was helpful.
And she was able to keep the dog and go out in Central Park. And
so, what do you say, Jeff? I mean, right? I mean...
Well, I was talking more about tools, not necessarily the physical manipulation of a dog, which, I mean, there's times I still might put my finger on a butt to hold the butt in place when I'm luring a dog down. Because, their butt sometimes pops up when you're doing a down lure. That's technically force. I still do that. So, woo, I'm bad. Anyway, but what about the dog that runs to the end of the leash and you stop the dog? That's force, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Can we all agree on that?
Yeah.
Helen, you don't think it's force if a dog goes to the end of the leash and I hold back?
You're going to stop him. That's force.
If I'm just holding the leash.
Yeah.
And the dog comes to the end of the leash and hits it. Is that force? It's yes or no. There's no gray area.
No, it's not intentional. It's not implemented force. It's just,
Okay.
Leashes are a fact of life. They're a leash law.
Okay, so
I can't avoid a leash. If
I understand that, but
if a dog blows past me and jerks himself. I didn't do that, but I did, there has to be a leash.
You could have run with them.
Right, but if I'm
Not as fast as they can.
okay, so here's the problem. Here's the problem. If I have a harness on the dog, I am force free. If I have a collar, I am not force free. Does that make any sense? Because
No.
it doesn't to me.
Me neither.
Well, I think
If you use anything but a harness,
I wouldn't do it with a collar.
And
I wouldn't do it with a collar.
but don't these arguments show that why the profession of dog training is in jeopardy, because we're not really understanding that that we're making value judgments on what somebody else does?
there's a small population that feels that way.
Yeah, but they're really vocal, and they're
of course
inciting and on both sides.
It's always the fanatics that are vocal. You got far right, you got far left. They're the ones doing all the bep. You don't hear from the centrists. It's like that all through life. I don't know that it's hurting the future of dog training. Again, we go into these forums, we see it, we hear it, and we're exposed to some of the extremes. But generally, I think the vast majority is a little more centrist. But
what about the general population?
The general population is going to hire the person closest to them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Most dog trainer. Here's the funny thing is that, and again, I don't have a lot of experience watching what people refer to themselves as force-free trainers. I can only rely on video and social media of the most outspoken people. And every single, even the most outspoken, pompous egomaniac that I've watched, who claims he's force-free, is an operant conditioning trainer. Because I watched his videos, I've seen it in action. But God forbid you mention the OC quadrant to him and the rails just fall. It's everybody is an operant conditioning trainer. That's what bothers me. I think that's really what bothers me, is that we're all doing the same shit. You're just calling it something else. Mm-hmm. We all want to shape dogs in a positive manner. We all want to enrich their lives. We all want to improve the relationship between dog and owner. So, I don't know. I think the future of dog trainers, if people continue to have an open mind, I think dogs are going to be okay.
Okay.
If dog trainers close their mind, dogs will ultimately suffer. And that's why I get so emotional about this. Because honestly, with all due respect to all of you, I could give a shit about dog trainers in the future. I care about dogs in the future.
Okay. Helen, I'm going to ask you that question right now as well, and then I'm going to ask everybody as well, and we're going to call it a day. What do you think about the future of dog trainers?
Oh,
Helen.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm not sure I understand the question. I thought that's what we were discussing.
I'm saying let's sum it up. What do you think? Do you think that the dog trainers, that the future looks good, the future looks bad, the future looks medium? What do you think?
I think the future looks cyclical. I think there are times where dog trainers become more in demand than other times. People will rely. You always have people who will rely on books and videos, possibly AI and robots, but you'll come full circle, and they'll come to the people, because you always need the people. Like Steve said, there's relationship. You need a relationship. Dog's not going to respond to a box. You need someone to help you. You can't, when the dog doesn't do what the book says it should do, or when your dog doesn't do what is shown on the video, you need someone who knows how to fix it.
Okay, and Steve, same question.
Well, just sort of to go back to Jeff's thing, it is about the dog for us, right? It's what we do. I think one of the things I ran into recently was the idea that, John Holmes wrote The Farmer's Dog.
Right.
Not familiar? John Holmes. We're talking way back, way back. But the guy was like a brilliant trainer. He had border collies. He had a farm, that kind of stuff. Excellent book. Really, I like this guy. But he used a stick. He's very clear about that. He used a stick. He loved those dogs. They loved him. But he was like an employer. He was their employer. They worked for him. They loved him. He was a great employer as far as they were concerned, and he loved his employees, the border collies. But he kept them under the way a boss oftentimes treats their employees. It's like looking over your shoulder and, smacking you in the back of the head every now and then, or, taking some of your money away because you didn't do the right thing. He used a stick. But when you read him, you get that he was a compassionate man. It's what he did. Now, back in the days when they used a stick, if your dog needed to get spayed, it probably cost $20 because, we're talking employees. But over the years, the dog became family. Mm-hmm. It's not an employee anymore. It's a family member. So what happened with that? The way we treat them is much different, I think, for the better. I don't know that the cost of veterinary medicine makes me happy. Sorry to say that, being in the position I've been all these years, but how are you going to handle your family? Well, you're going to get the MRI. It's your family, for God's sake.
Right.
It's not, things have changed. The way we perceive dogs has changed. And with that, the way we train dogs, or the perception of how we should be treating our family members, has changed. Right. So, my wife works in the school system. There are a lot of very unruly, even physically abusive kids in the school system. Mm-hmm. I have a problem with that. Teacher can't do anything.
Right.
I know I couldn't get away with that when I was in school. Teachers were a little bit more, if not handsy, a little more threatening. And, you were afraid to be disrespectful to teachers. But the way things are now in school, it's frightening. And it's part of like one whole big thing. And so I see how our situation with the dogs, we're going to love these dogs. We're going to do the best we can. I think the dialogue among us in terms of what might be best is healthy on one hand, but it gets a little out of control sometimes. And I think, when Jeff said, at the end of the day, we're all dog trainers, we're not making $1,000 a case. You know what I mean? We're dog trainers, let's hold this in a little bit. Well, that's true. Let's hold it all in. Everybody should be holding everything in, right? Not like it's exploding with, oh, no, you can't do that. You can't do this and you can't do that. And what we have is more dogs getting euthanized for bad behavior because there's no discipline. And we have kids that are getting kicked out of school and put into like all kinds of isolation because nobody really like tunes them up a little bit when they need a little help. If their own parents don't do it, so as counselors, because that's what we do, I think it's important that they understand that you want to reward as many good behaviors as you can, and you want to try and correct some of the behaviors that are wrong, or be comfortable with isolating your dog at times because you can't watch it and you can't fix it in the moment. And if you don't want to like fix it, then you become a manager of the dog and its problems. Now, some people are fine with that. If you're okay with that, I'm okay with that. If you want to fix something and it's going to require some sort of negativity, then I'm going to show you the least amount of negativity that I can come up with that's possible to fix this thing for them. If you're not comfortable with that, we can always rely on management. But
Steve,
yeah,
what do you think about the future of dog trainers?
I think that they're going to be around, for years to come. I do think that they're not going to go anywhere. I've seen a huge number of the increase in profession is gigantic.
Yes, and it's growing.
It's growing
by leaps and bounds. They say it's going to be at 11% growth within the next 10 years.
So there it is. It is. We're growing. Despite all the conflict and controversy, we grow anyway.
Okay. And Bonnie, last.
Well, I'm going to do a shameless plug for Steve's pop-up webinar, Tuesday, January 28th. I'm hopeful.
Commercial.
No, it connects up. I'm hopeful for the dog training profession because 75 people have signed up for it. And the topic is the way you do the things you do. Things have changed in training in the past 15, 20 years. Why do you use the tools that you use? How do you train? And 75 people want to come and hear Steve talk about this topic and also share what they do and talk about it. And I'm sure that that's because we're just saying, come everybody and talk about the way you do the things you do.
Mm-hmm.
As in the old Motown Temptation song.
There you go.
All right.
There you go.
So
All right.
I am hopeful. Go ahead, Helen.
76 people want to go, but I can't.
I know.
The boxes are going to be like this.
All right.
Little faces.
Yeah.
So anyway, we went a little bit long this time, but this topic, as we all know, as Steve Diller says, it's complicated. But I really do think we had a very interesting discussion. I think we discussed a lot of different aspects of it. It seems like all the trainers seem to think that the future of dog training is still a positive outlook and still can be rosy. So we'd love to know what you think, and please put that in the comments below. And we want to thank you all for being here. And trainers, I'd like to thank you all for being here. And
oh, wait. They can sign up for the event on our Dog Trainers Connection Facebook page.
All right. That's the pop-up webinar with Steve Diller. The way you do the things you do, January 28th.
Commercial.
All right. So, folks, thank you again. And
it's free.
And we'll see you next time. Bye, folks.
See ya.
Bye. Thank you all.